Alex Miller joins us now. This is going to be the longest round, the 6th round. And it might be a little bit different because heretofore, Canada, Mexico, they kind of just shut stuff down. But now they say there might be a little wiggle room.
Right. And even that might not be enough for this president. You know, we know that both during the campaign and as president, he has threatened NAFTA. Many people are worried that his patience are going to run out before a deal is reached, especially because they might be moving that deadline even further now. I spoke with Congressman Ron Kind. He's a Democrat who supports continuing to work on the agreement about what we can expect with this round of negotiations. Negotiations are about to get underway. What are your expectations for the round?
Well, I think all of us agree that if we have an opportunity to modernize NAFTA, bring it into the 21st century, this was an agreement actually that was reached in the early 1990s, and the global economy has changed quite a bit.
Are we taking advantage of Mexican farmers? They're like they've complained that, you know, they have low wages and they've had their issues because of American farmers.
Well, there are always going to be certain comparative advantages that each country brings to the table on that. But I think being able to negotiate and renegotiate a trade agreement such as NAFTA gives us an opportunity to establish rules that will actually benefit the farmers and the workers in Mexico too, to elevate the standards up to where we are so that there are more protections for them.
Have you felt like Canada has been a little bit more difficult to work with this time around?
You know, they have been. I think there's some issues that need to be resolved in the agriculture sector, but any negotiation has got to be a two-way street. There's got to be give and take on both sides. And one of the concerns I have from the Trump trade team and from him specifically are kind of the draconian positions that they're taking that may be a step too far for both Canada and Mexico.
The president has been pretty vocal about NAFTA. He was on the campaign trail. Yeah. He has been as recently as tweeting not that long ago about NAFTA. Are you concerned with the way that he has handled the talks from a distance?
I have been, and I've registered that concern with the president himself, but also with his trade team, the trade ambassador, that trade can be an opportunity for us to expand the economy, to create good paying jobs at home. But you also need rules of trade that can be enforced. And lacking a trade agreement, you have nothing to enforce, no rules, no standards. So if the president's goal is to try to keep a campaign promise and withdraws from the trade agreement, trade will not stop then when it comes to Canada or Mexico. It just means that we'll be trading with these countries with elevated tariffs, making it more expensive to us to export in their countries, but also with a lack of enforceability.
Are you concerned their upcoming election is going to get in the way?
Domestic politics are always going to play a role, whether it's here at home, whether it's in Mexico, or even up in Canada. It's going to be very easy for the politicians in those countries to run on an anti-American platform. And that will make it easier for them to win elections. What that does then, it isolates us as a country. It reduces our influence.
So Congressman Ron Kind represents a farm district. I've covered him for years now. He says this would be devastating to the farmers and the people in his area and people that mirror his districts. They already have a lot of issues with dairy farmers, and they have a kind of a rocky relationship with Canada relating to that. I spoke with Ben Beachy. He works for the Sierra Club. He thinks the deal needs to be scrapped and completely rewritten. Or what do you say to people that are, you know, base their livelihood on a lot of these trade deals?
We need to get to a place where we can, again, insert standards that actually protect the people we need to protect. We've seen for over 2 decades how NAFTA has contributed to stagnant wages, to lost jobs, to increased air and water pollution. And that's largely because NAFTA is less of a trade deal and more of a grab bag of corporate handouts.
You think that all countries have suffered under this?
The lines around who has suffered are not national boundaries. Unless you're a really large corporation, it's hard to make an argument that you've benefited from NAFTA. There's a corporations for years in the United States used to recycle used car batteries, and the problem with used car batteries is they have a lot of lead in them. So when you recycle them, you have to make sure you're not polluting the air, polluting communities that are going to be drinking the water and living in proximity to the factories. In 2009, we got a new policy passed to protect our communities in the United States from lead poisoning, increased air standards to protect these communities. And instead of complying with that policy, these corporations decided to use NAFTA and simply export those used car batteries, export their pollution, and export those jobs down to Mexico. And so what that meant in Michigan or in other places where they were recycling these batteries is that workers lost jobs. What it meant in Mexico is that communities all of a sudden started seeing that now these used car batteries were being recycled in their communities with standards of air and water protection that are 1/10 as strong as we have in the United States. And NAFTA ensured that these corporations could do that free of charge. Trump's tweets like to paint NAFTA as if it's the U.S. versus Mexico. It's the corporations versus the rest of us.
Alex, we know that one big deal, this is a huge corporate industry, is cars. It's a point of contention.
Yeah, it really is. Basically, cars are made in different countries, but it's also the parts of each car that they use to put together the car as a whole to be sold in each country. Right now, about 62% of the cars made that are sold in North America have parts made in North America. President Trump wants to change that. He thinks that 85% of the cars made in North America, the parts also need to come from North America, and that's a really big problem for Mexico and Canada. They basically said it's a deal breaker for them because he wants the United States to get half of that work and then the other two to divide up the other 50%.
Why? Because we're buying the most cars probably too.
Yeah, so they are not appreciative of that deal, and we'll see what happens when they go into these negotiations tomorrow.
Other thing we wanted to touch on, transparency. We know 6 of these have happened. We don't know much about what's happening inside.
Yeah, the delegations have changed every time people are going in as far as the members of Congress and the other representatives that are going in. Obviously, the main few are the same. But it's largely being held in secret. Anything we know about these negotiations is coming from leaks, not from the negotiators as a whole. It's not a public thing. And they're bringing in corporations to help them negotiate, but not the workers themselves.
13 million American jobs affected.
Yeah.
Whew. High stakes.
High stakes.
Alex, thank you.